Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the regular meeting for ReGen Board of Directors. It's November 22nd and it's 9:02. So I'll call this meeting to order. Item roll call, please.
Chair Shirley?
Here.
Vice Chair Delgado? We like on one line, just to make sure that he's connected.
Okay, I'm here.
Yay.
Director Blackwelder?
Here.
Director Askew?
Here.
Director Peak?
Here.
Director Barber?
Present.
Director Ferlito?
Here.
Director Garcia Rizalda? Director McKee?
Here.
We have a form.
Great, thank you. Okay, could everyone join me in saying pledge of allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Right, we'll move on to public communications. Anyone wishing to address the board on matters not appearing on the agenda may do so now. Please limit your comments to a maximum of 3 minutes. No one online, no one in the chambers. All right, I'll close public comments. We'll move on to the consent agenda. We have items 5A through 5G. Is there anything that the directors would like to pull or note from the consent? No. I will make a note that on the minutes from our last regular meeting, I wanted the motion clarified. I felt like it needed to be clear and to say that we're going to defer that agenda item until the supply and demand decision was released from the CPUC, just providing a little bit more description on the motion.
Do we need to make a change to that?
Yeah, I'd like to. So I suppose we can include that in the motion.
Give direction on that, yeah.
Yeah. All right, is there anyone from the public who would like to pull anything from the consent?
I just have one comment on the minutes from the October 18th on page 3. The city manager for Marina is Lane Long, Layne.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, no one from the public. Okay, we'll come back. So I'll accept a motion for the consent agenda.
So I'll move to adopt the consent agenda with the language changes specific to Director Shirley's corrections. Do we have those clearly noted?
I think so.
Yes,
Yes.
yes, that's fine.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Wendy, I'm gonna ask you to speak up a little.
Okay, I can project, thank you.
All right, so we have a first from Director Rudaskew and a second from Director Blackwelder. And we'll do a roll call vote. Item, please.
Director Askew?
Aye.
Director Barber?
Yes.
Director Blackwelder?
Yes.
Director Ferlito?
Yes.
Director Garcia Rizalda?
Yes.
Director McKee?
Yes.
Director Peak?
Aye.
Vice Chair Delgado?
Yes,
Chair Shirley?
Yes,
Motion passes.
welcome, Director. Trustee Arzola. All right, we'll move on to presentation 6A. We have a presentation on the CETO's biochar pilot program.
Thank you, Chair. At this time, I'm going to introduce Mayo. He is with the CETO's company. He will be talking a little bit about our pilot program, some of the awareness, some of the items that we've learned along the way with biochar. Again, biochar is a processing system that materials, organic material, completes a carbon sequestration. And then it also is used for a blend into compost that will add a better water retention for a crop and then also retain nutrients within the upper layer where the crop roots are being grown. So I'd like to introduce Mel at this time. We're about 1 year and a half into our pilot. And he's going to share a little bit of our findings that we've had.
good morning. Thank you, General Manager Melchor and Board of Directors. My name is Mayo Ryan. I'm the co-founder and the CEO of the CETOS Group. I think we're in our 15th month here at ReGen Monterey. I'm long overdue in updating you as the board on our progress, and would be happy to stay past my presentation or at the end of the meeting to answer any detailed questions you may have. This is a fairly high level overview, so I'll let you know how things are going, and what we're all about. This has been a very monumental year for both CETOS and for the biochar industry in the US in general. At CETOS, we had a fairly significant change of ownership, which closed in March or April. Our co-founder, Steve McIntyre at Monterey Pacific, sold both Monterey Pacific and his interest in CETOS to Nuveen Natural Capital, which is a division of TIAA-CREF, a very large pension fund. Nuveen is Monterey Pacific's largest client and probably the largest landowner in the world. So we're very fortunate to have Nuveen supporting CETOS. We are something of a round or a square peg in a round hole. We don't fit quite Nuveen's operational mode. So it's been a few months in trying to learn how we fit into the Nuveen world, but it's all going very well. I would like to just update you on what's going on with our pilot plant. The pilot plant goals were fairly straightforward, and by and large, we've been successful. As I mentioned, we're in our 15th month of operation. The unit that we have here, while this is a very small pyrolysis plant, our technology is called slow pyrolysis as opposed to gasification or fast pyrolysis. As far as I know, we're the only company, the only biochar company in the United States, if not the world, that has a direct tie to agriculture through our association with Monterey Pacific. Our priority is quality biochar for soil health and plant nutrition, not power. And almost all other biochar companies in the US are energy related, where biochar is a byproduct. Not so with CETOS. Our focus is on a customizable biochar for specific soil types, which leads us to, or led us to adopt a slow pyrolysis technology. And the unit that we have over here at ReGen Monterey is the first of its kind in the United States. It's only the fourth of its kind throughout the world. So in terms of goals, the number one goal was to test this new generation of slow pyrolysis equipment. Doesn't look like much, but it's quite a feat. Both to get this unit operating, which we're still working on, and to develop this as a commercial machine and a set of machines for fully commercial operation. And by that measure, we've been successful. We've demonstrated the use of municipal wood waste as a feedstock. That has not been without its challenges. Moisture is the biggest key. We're very, very grateful for Keith Day and his participation in this project. Michael Bradovich, who's no longer with the company, was really helpful in establishing a source of feedstock that we could use. We don't have a dryer on this unit. And we realized early on that the moisture, the variability of moisture in the wood stock and the wood coming out of the Keith Day yard was highly variable. And it's kept us, as I'll get into in just a little bit, from really reaching a maximum production capacity here. And by the way, just chime in with any questions as you go, and I'd be happy to answer those questions. We're still working on quality. Today, just this last week, we had somebody here from Australia to help us tune the machine, even after a year of operation. So we haven't quite reached a point where we can adjust the qualities of the biochar coming out of the machine. But we understand this machine probably better than we ever have, and we're making terrific progress. So in terms of promoting pyrolysis in this setting, we've been very successful. One of the changes in the US biochar world is that we're embarking upon biochar 2.0. Biochar 1.0 over the last 10 years has been a very artisanal approach with batch kilns, very low volume to the production of biochar. But with CETOS's help, we've tried to professionalize and industrialize the industry over this last year through the formation of two national organizations, the US Biochar Coalition. I sit as vice chair and co-founder of that board, and the North American Biochar Council, which we just started. I also sit on that board, and it took over the US Biochar Initiative, which is the group in the US that's been operating in the biochar world for about the last 10 years. It hosts the annual biochar conference. So CETOS has been involved in really moving the industry forward, and we could only have done that with this pilot plant here at ReGen Monterey. So the US, essentially the US biochar world knows what we're doing at CETOS with ReGen Monterey. So you're out there as somebody that's helping to pave the way. We're still working on air quality permitting for slow pyrolysis, but we had a massive win here at the end of September. I'll get into that in just a little bit. We've had quite a bit of turnover in terms of employees. we've had to write and invent the job description for pyrolysis operators. Such a thing doesn't exist. So in these ways, we're kind of paving the way. And we have made terrific progress in formulating a commercial design for this plant, and I'll do that at the end of the presentation. Because of the dryer and the moisture of the feedstock coming from the Keith Bay yard, we've never been able to bring the machine to more than about 40% of its planned capacity. We have to have a dryer. And so in our fully commercial design, we've incorporated not only a dryer, but a full emissions control system, wet scrubbers, bag houses. We've learned a lot of lessons, but because of the moisture and the variability of moisture, we just have never made the numbers that we had hoped to make. And that's fine. This is an experiment. It's a pilot project, and we've learned a bunch of lessons about the quality, the machine, air permitting, and some other areas. Production quantity was not a big win for us, so that's fine. In terms of issues, we made some really good high quality biochar in 2003, and then we modified the machine in April of 2024 in order to comply with the Monterey Bay Air Resources District air quality test, and lost what understanding we had about how to make good quality biochar, and I'll get into that in a minute. We raised the stack 15 feet in order to make those tests possible. And so started making a different quality of biochar. Only last week did we figure out why. Last week we brought in Paul Kerr, who is the world's leading expert on the kind of machine that we had. He spent a week here, and it was monumental. So Paul essentially fixed the machine for us, and now today it's running better than it ever has. And I hope over the last 8 months of our pilot project, we're due to finish the pilot project at the end of July next year, that we can start to focus on quality and adjusting the quality of our biochar with this machine. At different temperatures, we can adjust the pH of the biochar, its surface area, its hydrogen to carbon ratio, its ash content. These are all really important things for different soil types. And we're the only biochar company that I am aware of that has that focus. As General Manager Melchor mentioned, our focus is biochar for soil health and plant nutrition. Nobody else in the industry is really focusing on that and understanding how to make different biochars for different soil types. So what I'm hoping to do with the Keith Bay company is employ Frank Shields, who runs their lab in Salinas, to just, and it's a small amount of equipment, to create a full high quality biochar lab over in Salinas. Today, everybody in the West Coast uses soil control labs in Watsonville. Frank used to work there. Those are very expensive tests and hard to get. So we've been reluctant to do the kind of quality testing that we really need to do with our own house lab. Working with the Keith Bay company, I think we can get there. And so that'll be the focus of our next 8 months here at ReGen Monterey. We had a massive win here on the last Thursday of September. When we designed and started planning for our ReGen Monterey pilot project, we were relying upon the EPA's advanced notice of rule change in 2020. The EPA came out and said, we are going to change the rules for pyrolysis so that pyrolysis will not be considered incineration or combustion. That was at the end of the first Trump administration. The Biden administration came in, and that advanced notice of rule change sat, and to date has never been ruled upon. I was in Washington in March, and I was in Washington again in September to try and change the EPA's official, I guess, recognition of pyrolysis as not combustion and not incineration, and we were successful. After our visit in Washington 2 weeks later, the EPA issued on the blue a fact sheet and a national set of guidelines that pyrolysis is not considered incineration and not considered combustion. What that essentially did is rule that the authority to construct we have at MBARD needs to be rethought. And so we just decided this last Monday to go ahead and reapply to the Monterey Bay Air Resources District for a new authority to construct under the new set of EPA guidelines. Although that is contextual, both EPA and MBARD viewed CEDOS as here at ReGen Monterey disposing of a waste product. We're not. We're repurposing a wood product to make high quality biochar. It's a very different thing. And the feedstock itself never gets combusted. Biochar is created incidentally in a low or no oxygen environment, and it never combusts. We chemically transform it from what it is, almond shell, municipal wood waste, into almost pure carbon. And so the EPA's finally gotten its arms around that. In September, we had both the waste management, the waste group, solid waste group, and the air group that generally don't speak to one another. They're both in different, one's in North Carolina, the other's in Washington. They're very siloed. We got them together and they agreed that pyrolysis is not combustion and not incineration. So here we are 15 months later with our ReGen Monterey project, and we're almost starting over with air quality, which is all good news. So just to go through the milestones, we did achieve or were granted the authority to construct in April of 23 by MBARD. Only last month did we finally have Monterey County approve our building permit. And remember, this is a completely temporary and portable or transportable set of equipment. The only thing that's bolted to the ground is the little lean-to that protects our computer control system from the rain. Nevertheless, we've worked for a year to get our building permit at Monterey County. Because we were deemed a low solid incinerator or a low volume incinerator under the other solid waste incineration rule, we were asked to conduct a very expensive air quality test in April, which we did. It cost $110,000 to conduct the test and another $30,000 to build the stack and the scaffolding and the equipment in order to make the test possible. Even without any emissions control on that system, I just assumed we were going to fail on particulate matter because there's not even a screen on our machine. But we passed on particulate matter and almost all gases. We failed and are out of compliance in the moment with MBARD because there was lead in the feedstock, which we were unaware of. And so we did a little bit of a back of the envelope calculation, and the amount of lead in the solid feedstock that came in did in fact produce the amount of gaseous lead coming out of the system. So we were going to ask MBARD to grant an extension for us, or an exemption, frankly, through the end of our test period, which is the end of July 2025. But just this last Monday, we agreed that we're going to go ahead and reapply to MBARD based on the new EPA set of rules. And we hope that that new ruling with not just MBARD, but Region 9 at EPA will help us in our first commercial plant and process here. And again, at the end of that, I'm happy to answer any questions. In terms of the machine, this unit that we have here was the very first of its kind made by the manufacturer of Applied Gaia. The owner of Applied Gaia is a good friend of ours. She got the drawings for this design from the people who are ultimately going to buy equipment from. It's a big, long, and drawn-out story and wordy. But this equipment was made by a group of people that had never operated one before. So here we are, a year later. We've suffered in operating this machine. It was not constructed correctly. It was built with parts that really didn't work for what we wanted to do. And here, only a year later, are we figuring this out. The burner has been a problem. We're on our third burner, and we learned last week that the burner was installed, and all subsequent burners were installed incorrectly. Now we know what to do. Insulation was a problem. Even though the feedstock trough is supposed to be airtight, we've learned that we have some fugitive air leaks, which are causing a little bit of smoke and higher ash than we want. We've solved these, so that's a good thing. And the biggest lesson is that we need to have a dryer, and so we've incorporated dryers now on the commercial equipment going forward. So again, this has not been without its learning curve and pain, but I think we're there now. This is what the new design looks like. And so this is the unit that we have here at ReGen Monterey. We have a single unit, no emissions control, no dryer. But in the first commercial plant that we will build, these are the lessons that have come out of this. So for us as a company, having this pilot plant here was critical. We would not be where we are, and we cannot go where we want to go not having this pilot plant. So this has been a really, really wonderful experience for us in terms of building this design. This is truly unique. The three of these machines do 8 to 10 times more than the most efficient or highly productive machine made by anybody in the United States. I think we have a really good mousetrap, and it came from the year and a half that we were operating this machine. Terrific lessons. We have a single dryer through which we can dry almost any feedstock going into a consistent 5%, and that's what you need of moisture. A single stack of emissions going out, and with wet scrubbers and bag houses, we don't think we'll have any emissions at all. Theoretically, it's just hot air and biochar, the only two things that come out of this machine. We can use 26,000 tons of feedstock going in to create about 8,000 tons of biochar, and we did have our life cycle assessment approved by Puro Earth, which is owned by NASDAQ, and that's the world's leading biochar-based carbon removal marketplace. And so our life cycle assessment here says that for every ton of biochar that we incorporate, for example, in a Monterey Pacific vineyard, we pull 2.5 tons of carbon from the atmosphere. And so this is the life cycle assessment that we'll use going forward. I think about 80% of that work will be valuable and valid for the next commercial plant that we build in the area or here. I was in China in August. Our new machines are made in Chengdu in China. This doesn't look like much. You can sort of see that the shape is similar to what we have here just up the road. But this machine represents a significant set of improvements and modifications, all of which we learned here through this ReGen pilot project. This machine, as I said, this was in August. This was the 25th of October, so just about, 4 weeks ago. And this is the factory test. These are the machines, 3 of them side by side, which we'll use in our first commercial plant. That 3-machine plant is 10 times the capacity of this single machine here. Each one of those units is 3 times the capacity of what we have down the road. And that only came through improvements that we learned and gained knowledge of by this pilot plant. I can't thank you enough for the 1.5 years that you've allowed CETOS to be here. It hasn't been easy for us, and I know we haven't always been as communicative as we could be with you, but the amount of innovation and the gift that you gave us by being here at ReGen and improving the feedstock, this wood-based feedstock at a municipal landfill facility is a game changer for us. So I just want you to know how grateful we are for your help, your assistance, and for partnering with us on this. As I said, there isn't anybody in my biochar world that isn't aware of what we're doing here at ReGen Monterey, and I'm happy to answer any questions you might have.
Great. Thank you very much for your presentation.
You're welcome.
Questions?
Yes.
Yeah, thank you. So the timeline sort of moving forward, like what do you foresee as sort of the next 1-year timeline, 5-year timeline?
We have funding. We would like to fund all of our future developments through a program called New Markets Tax Credits. And that's what we're funding. Our first commercial plant will be built at Treehouse Almonds in Delano, California. Treehouse shares a set of shareholders with us. And so that's that's an easy path for us to build a plant, our first commercial plant. And so we'll be able to do that here in 2025. And we'd very much like to transition from this pilot project into a fully commercial 3-machine plant here in the area, if not at ReGen Monterey. We've proven that the feedstock is worthy. With a dryer now, we can utilize municipal wood waste as a valid feedstock. It may not be a very big solution, but it's a solution to repurposing that waste. And it's not just municipal wood waste we'd like to try and pyrolyze. It's biosolids from the wastewater treatment plant. We think that's a valuable approach. So we have another 8 months on our ReGen pilot project here, and we're going to utilize those 8 months to really understand how we adjust quality of biochar coming out of this machine. Until we got the machine operating at its perfect level, which only happened last week after 15 months, we weren't capable of doing that, but we are now. I hope that answered your question.
Yeah, no, for sure. Thank you.
Dr. Barber.
So in transitioning to a commercial plant, do you have a budget of what that looks like?
$9 million.
I'm sorry.
$9 million. To date, we have invested about 2.8 or 3, almost $3 million in this pilot plant. Probably a third of that was on physical equipment, and the balance has been on operations, testing, and everything else that went along with it. And we're perfectly willing to do that. That's actually a good number for the amount of biochar we can produce and the carbon dioxide removal credits.
Okay, so with the credits, how much of that is gonna be utilized with the credits, and how much of that?
Great question. So our budget model, it's private lot. So we have 3 sources of income. The biochar sales themselves, so by the ton, and generally that would go to Monterey Pacific. Monterey Pacific generates or uses about 10,000 tons of bulk biochar per year. In fact, in 2025, they'll develop 1,000 acres of new vineyards. And Monterey Pacific's perfected the use of biochar in wine grapes over the last 10 years and has the largest at-scale biochar study in wine grapes anywhere in the industry. That's 10 tons of pure biochar with a 15-ton compost blend, 25-ton total. That biochar compost blend is generated by the Keep Day Company and sold to Monterey Pacific. Monterey Pacific has patented the equipment that is used to make that application in wine grapes. So together, CETOS and Monterey Pacific are a great team. But 1/3 biochar sales, 1/3 carbon dioxide removal sales marketed through Puro Earth, and the other third is energy. We can take the heat generated by these machines and run what are called organic Rankine cycle electricity generators. This is old technology. It's not combustion, so we're not utilizing syngas or production gases, which is what is produced by a gasifier. Ours is a very simple operation. And so the third leg of the tripod would be very low cost energy. So renewable 24/7 energy in a local microgrid. And it remains to be seen whether that would be a value here at ReGen Monterey, whether this, we could put that into the grid here, but that's a subject of research today.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you very much for the presentation.
Sure.
Glad to see that you surmounted a lot of obstacles.
It's been an interesting year.
Yeah. So obviously, I was just wondering, what's going to be the status of the pilot? You said the pilot will be ending in 2025.
Mhm.
So,
What we'd like to do,
to the equipment and the
Great question.
relationship.
Yeah. The plan today is we'd like to create a quality control lab and use this machine as the test machine that's in that quality control lab. We would never deploy this particular machine in a commercial setting because it's only a third of what a new machine can produce. So this particular machine, we'd like to build a quality control lab. And both test our biochars, use it to make different biochars with different feedstocks. So that's the goal, is either in partnership with the Keep State company or on our own, build a quality control lab and use this machine as its pyrolysis unit.
So the equipment would stay here.
It'll stay,
That's what
if not here, certainly in the area. Yes. Mhm.
And what do you see? I gather it's still to be seen what the future would be with ReGen on this operation.
We haven't really sat down to look at the details of that. We would very much like to build a full 3-machine commercial plant, which utilizes ReGen Monterey's municipal wood waste. Exactly what we're doing today, only on a commercial basis. That's the plan. We don't have the details worked out on how that,
On
how it's gonna be
on this footprint for the district.
here or very close by. As I said, one of the legs of the income tripod is energy. Biochar pricing is not great today. When we started this business, we thought that we would be selling biochar for twice what the current market is. We've adjusted our business model enough that we can drop biochar to the current level of pricing and still make some money. But energy generation is a big part of that. We need to generate energy to make the company profitable.
Well,
Great, thank you. Yes.
Question, yes, seeing that newly elected president wants to put tariffs on everything, especially coming from China,
Yes.
how do you anticipate how that might impact?
We've thought a lot about this. It's interesting, biochar is nonpartisan. We have 26 bills that are biochar related in the Senate and the House, and the majority of those bills are sponsored by Republicans. Just yesterday, I learned that Senator Murkowski from Alaska and Senator Bennett from Colorado just introduced a carbon dioxide improvement act, which we would qualify for as a slow pyrolysis biochar manufacturer sequestering carbon in soil. So just yesterday, we see new bills coming. As far as the Chinese manufacturer, we'll do a couple things. We'll either set an import-export company in Taiwan, export from China to Taiwan and import from Taiwan. Or what I think will happen is our manufacturer will put a production facility in Thailand because a lot of these units are planned to go to Southeast Asia. I was just in Cambodia last summer, and what we have is there's a unit just like ours, what we'll deploy, that's been operating for 18 months in central Cambodia, and it's running at better than expected production. So it's others have done the due diligence on our equipment along with us. But it's a great question. We think about that a lot.
The second part is, you have a dryer now,
We don't. The dryer for this particular unit, knowing that this was a temporary installation, we made the decision not to go ahead and buy or make a dryer. But all of the new units will have incorporated dryers. They have to. We have to be able to dry our feedstock to a consistent 5% going into
do you anticipate adding?
not to this particular unit, no.
Not until you would rip.
Not until we know where this machine is gonna land and where, like, at that point, we will add a dryer. But in this temporary setting, probably not, no.
I had a question. Thank you for your presentation.
Not at all.
And again, your persistence in this with through all the bumps in the road, but congratulations.
That's all right.
So you've mentioned before about how you're looking at different feedstocks. It seems like this pilot program was really mainly looking at wood as a
Yes.
feedstock.
Mhm.
Where are you at in potentially looking at other?
The Treehouse Monterey, so in the almond industry generates a little over 1 million tons of almond shell per year throughout the San Joaquin and Sacramento valleys. There are really no uses for that almond shell. It's road-based or dairy bedding. But almond shell makes a very, very good biochar feedstock, as does the municipal wood waste that we're using here. The only issue for us is that we need to dry it. It's a very inconsistent moisture, and it's not just what's coming in, it's the weather. And so we have interesting weather in the summer. It's not dry in Monterey in the summer, which is fine, no problem. We've learned our lessons, but almond shell, pistachio shell, municipal wood waste, and biosolids are all very, very good feedstocks. Ironically, biosolids into biochar, the EPA put out a study last November. Biosolids into biochar are the solution for PFAS and PFOS remediation, 100%. And that's all those studies came out from the Redwood City wastewater treatment plant that uses a slow pyrolysis unit. That plant was installed in 2018. We kept our eye on it. And so PFAS and PFOS remediation with biochar made from biosolids is a real thing.
So now that you've figured out the moisture issue,
Yeah.
like, could you just easily translate that to biosolids and dry it
Yeah.
and?
Yeah, we can take, with the dryer, we can take anything from 40–50% moisture and dry it down to a consistent 5%. That's what we need. We need a very consistent feedstock going into the pyrolysis units, essentially.
That's great.
Yeah. And I'll be here at the end of the meeting if you have any other questions.
Oh, yeah, yes. Director Delgado.
Hi, thank you. If you're not gonna install a dryer on site here, what kind of progress are you gonna make without a dryer the next 7 months or so?
Great question. We're not so much interested in volume as we are in quality at this point. And so when we have a good feedstock that we know is making good biochar, and we can tell visibly whether we're on the right track or not, that's fine. We don't need the dryer. If we have a good feedstock going into the machine, we can start to play around with quality and not worry about quantity. With the dryer, we can push quite a bit of feedstock through the system. Without it, it's a small quantity, but we can still adjust quality.
Okay, thank you.
I hope that answers your question.
It does. What is the source of the lead?
Good question. We don't know. When we had that, it was a big surprise for us when we got the test results back. But when we sat down with the Keith Day company, they said, oh yeah, we do have lead. It's under their limitations. So they're not exceeding the lead quantity in feedstock or in what they're doing at the yard, but it was enough to create the gaseous lead emission that we had from the stack. So in all regards, we have a solution. We now know that we need to look for lead in feedstock. That was news to us. And with the addition of the wet scrubber and emission systems and bag houses going forward, we know we will cover all emissions coming out of the machines.
So is it possible that there is lead in tree trunks and other wood products?
We think it's coming from, we do use a combination of wood products and ground pallets. And the reason for that is the ground pallets that the Keith Day provides are the driest wood material that he has. And so we blend ground pallets, and that's where we think the lead came from.
And do ground pallets have lead because of nails?
No, we have magnets on both the screens at the Keith Day yard and on our machine. So we need to keep metal out of the machine.
So do you know why ground pallets may have lead?
No, I don't.
Okay, thank you.
No, no, good question. Thank you.
Okay, Director.
Yes, sir.
Great presentation. If your plants were, or your plant was located in Yuma, as opposed to a very humid area like Monterey, would it make a big difference?
Yes, it would.
And that 40% would drop down to.
Well, in the summer, ambient temperatures are well over what we would want that feedstock to go into. Yeah, that would make a difference. Absolutely. I think in all cases, we will include the dryer. We have now a single dryer for 3 machines. And so it's not 3 dryers per machine. The manufacturer has never made a system with more than one pyrolyzer, but one of the benefits of our technology is we can put 3, 5, or 10 of them side by side. The only other slow pyrolysis machine on the West Coast is in Merced. At the Merced Airport, they're making biochar on a bed of molten salt. Biochar is not their priority, wood vinegar is. It's not a machine we would ever scale. So what we've done is taken our 3 machines and consider it one system with one dryer. I think just to be safe, we would always have a dryer going forward based on what we want to hear. Yeah, but you're right, ambient temperatures above 100 degrees would be a big benefit. We probably then wouldn't use the heat in the dryer, just run feedstock through the dryer and take that heat and generate electricity with it. Yeah.
So does the energy that you produce, can you run your dryers on that?
Yep, so the plan today is to use the heat from one of the 3 pyrolysis units to feed the dryer with heat, and the other 2, that heat will go to organic Rankine cycle generators. And they're made in Southern California, which is interesting. That company doesn't have a single unit installed in the United States, so they're dying to do one here. It's a very developing world technology. Wherever there's heat, energy can be generated, but here in the United States, in a developed world, that's not a very sophisticated way. We did play around with. What's unique about our system is that there's a bunch of syngas or production gases generated when in these systems, but ours uses those syngases and production gases to generate energy. This machine generates more energy once it's brought to temperature than it requires to operate, what's called exothermic. So we don't require anything more than a very small amount of electricity to run the motors and the computer control panel. There's no big amount of electricity, no amount of gas or fuel that we need to sustain the heat. And we're running at 750 degrees C, so 1500 more Fahrenheit. And so we're using those gases in our machine. It's a very simple operation. Only heat and biochar should be the things that come out. We don't produce a syngas on purpose. Otherwise, if energy were our priority, we take that syngas and run microturbines or engines, some combustion source of energy. We're not quite there yet. That's not something that is in our business model. This is a very simple machine, elegant. Yeah.
Great. Thank you. All right.
You're welcome. I'll be here at the end of the meeting for any questions.
Okay, great.
Thank you very
I'll open it
much.
up for public comment. If there's anyone who'd like to ask a question, make a comment. All right. Maya,
Thank
thank
you.
you so much. Appreciate it. All right, we'll move on to our discussion. Action item, we have 7A, discuss CalPERS unfunded actuarial pension liability.
Thank you, Chair. We have Helen Rodriguez, our finance director. She will be presenting some examples of reducing our CalPERS pension liability. And that's liability that's had in the current year. So I think we wanted to better address this moving forward because there is a potential savings in making additional payments to our pension liability over time. And you'll see the scenarios and the examples that Alan has presented. The goal is to get caught up with the prior year liabilities that's outstanding for the CalPERS liability fund. Thank you.
Good morning, Chair. Good morning, members of the board. You'll excuse me if I cough through the presentation today. I woke up with a little bit of a sore throat this morning. Try to get through technical difficulties here. Very good item. Begin. So this morning I will be presenting to you some options with regards to our CalPERS liability. As you know, this is probably one of the biggest liabilities on most governmental agencies, districts, cities. It's always a controversial subject. Our liability here, as of the last valuation report here at ReGen Monterey, is roughly $19.7 million. And we are roughly 67.8% funded. And that was as of the June 23 actuarial valuation, as you know. What is that? I'm just removing stuff. As you know, these valuation reports are always 2 years in arrears. So this valuation goes back to 2023. We're now in 2025. And so that's where we stand. And you can see this on the actuarial valuation report included in our packet. It's on page 4 if you would like to see that. CalPERS this year posted a 9.3 investment gain. They don't, that was a significant year for them. So next year, there's no anticipated change in the discount rate for this year. The discount rate is currently at 6.8%. Now, there's a difference between our actuarial liability versus our termination liability. The difference is that in the termination liability, the discount rate lowers from the 6.8% to either a 3.5%, whatever the discount rate is at that time. I've seen it go all the way down to 1.5%. So when the discount rate goes down, the liability increases significantly. So here on page 31 of the actuarial valuation, they give us a hypothetical termination liability. At a discount rate of 3.06%, our liability increases from 19 million to 55.3 million. At a discount rate of 4.5%, again, it goes from 19 million to 30.5 million.
Can we ask questions during the presentation or you want to wait till the end?
Feel free to ask at any time, sir.
Question, the 6.8% drives the $20 million.
That's correct.
And who determines the 6.8%?
CalPERS determines that, sir. That is what they use for all agencies.
And even though the average rate is only 3 or 4 or 5%, they have 6.8, which is dramatically higher.
Yes. So the 3% is based on if you're terminating and there's no longer any funds, so they will have to increase that because they will not be gaining probably interest over the years once you've terminated. So they still have to continue funding retirees past the termination date. So they anticipate and extrapolate out forward to the years, thus lowering the discount rate. That makes sense, sir? So here is our funding status. As you can see, as of June 30, 2022, we had an outstanding liability of 18.9 million, and June 2023, we are at 19.7 million, a roughly an increase of 700,000 year over year on our liability, despite the fact that we had a $2 million gain on our market valuation over the year. You can see the liability has grown 3 million. Less than 2 million, so roughly that. So there are 4 options that we looked at when we were considering how to address this liability. The first one was to continue the minimum unfunded actuarial liability, which is what we are currently doing today. We are making just the annual amount that's requested by CalPERS. The second is the creation of a reserve policy. The third is the creation of a Section 115 trust. And the fourth is to reduce the amortization period from 23 years via increasing or accelerating the UAL payment. So I'll go through pros and cons of each of the options as we go forward. So the first one obviously is to continue as we are. The pros of this is there's no change in the process. There's no change in any way that we do our budgeting. There's no significant impact to our cash flow at all whatsoever. The cons are obviously the interest will continue to accrue. The liability continues to grow bigger and bigger, and that liability is subject to fluctuations. So when we have a huge market decline, you can see how much that liability is going to grow. The second option we looked at was creation of a reserve policy. The pros on that is that obviously, yes, we'll be setting aside cash for future UAL payments and the board has the ability to unreserve the cash when the district is strapped on cash. You can always say, unreserve it, use it for something else. The cons on that would be, again, the interest continues to grow, the liability continues to grow, and our liability on our books never, ever decreases. Despite the fact that we have the cash available as reserve. The third option we looked at was the creation of a 115 trust. So similar to a reserve, this is setting aside cash for the payment of the future liability. The only difference between this and a reserve is that the cash now becomes restricted. The board can never take that cash back. It's basically given out to a third party, but it's still in the name of the district. It does not reduce our liability. The interest continues to grow. And again, the earnings on the funds for section 115 trust may not offset the increase in interest and liabilities that we have. And like I said, the biggest one here is that when we are strapped for cash, the board can never, ever take that cash back. It's only designated for the retirement of this fund. So we looked at the fourth option, which was to decrease the amortization schedule and increase the UAL payment. And we have, I've been in the discussions with CalPERS quite a bit the last 3 months or so. So this by far has been the best option for the district because one, it reduces the liability upfront and it reduces the saves us interest expense. And we can adjust that UAL payment year over year. And there is no obligation for the district to have to make these payments. If we can't make it, we don't make it. So that's the very few cons in here. There will be an increased demand on cash. And again, here, depending on CalPERS investment earnings, that liability can continue to grow. So on this page here, as you can see, and this is also on page 31 of your, on page, I think it was page 22 of your schedule. This is some of the scenarios that CalPERS has given us. And if you could see, here's the 23 year right here. You can see we are paying $14 million in interest on top of the $19 million. If we were to accelerate the payment, this is roughly $450,000 a year. We saved $3 million in interest. 10 years, we saved $7 million. This is roughly $1 million over the anticipated minimum UAL that we are currently paying. So we went back to CalPERS and I asked them, can you please provide me a schedule through 2036? Now, why 2036? Obviously, we have some major contracts coming up. We have a lot of things coming up on the horizon with the 2036 deadline. So we wanted to make sure that we were fully funded, so to speak, on this liability. So here, this is what CalPERS sent me back. If we were to make an additional $500,000 year over year, every January after we make the minimum UAL payment in July, you could see we will be saving $6 million in interest. That's quite a big savings for us. The reason I recommend 500,000 was I felt that it was not such a big impact on cash. We would be able to manage it through the budget process. We can look at it and also take in consideration any rate increases so that if there is a rate increase, it would not have such a majority impact on any future rate increases that the board might choose to approve. So that's why this was chosen. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to address them. So.
Any questions? Dr. Barber.
So talking about the accelerated increasing the UAL and accelerating the payment. Part of the con that it shows is that liability may continue to grow. Can you explain that a little bit?
I'm sorry, what was that?
It shows that liability may continue to grow. Was one of the cons. Can you explain that a little bit on the accelerated
Yes.
option?
So the liability always continues to grow. And the reason for that is, one, we have inflation. Two, we have our employees have step increases. Our retirees have a maximum of a 2% year over year CPI on their payouts. So as retirees take out money, our liability decreases. However, they're still receiving funds forward. So we still have to take that in consideration. Plus, we have a continuous growth in the number of employees. So our liability will always increase. And what we'd like to do is to make sure that we're on top of any of those increases year over year. So as I said, this is always 2 years in arrears, these valuation reports. So it come 2036, we will hopefully be funded as of 2034 on that valuation report. So then our interest year over year would be minimal in comparison to the 14 million that we have today.
So, but if I understand correctly, all the options still have some sort of liability.
Yes,
None of them would just,
this option here with the 500,000 reduces that because we're reducing the principal.
right, so this has the most minimal liability.
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Director McKee.
As we go through the budget each year, for 2025, we budgeted X amount of cost and X amount of revenue, and we have a profit that we included. Now, all of a sudden, we're going to increase the cost by $500,000 for next year.
Yes,
And I just want to make sure that we've gone through and reduced expenses someplace to offset that cost, because we already approved the budget once.
that's correct, sir. So we looked at where we were at the budget today. So expense wise, and Garth will talk to this after when he does his financial report. Expense wise, we're roughly about $580,000 below expenses year to date.
This year.
Year to date. So that is as of October 2023. And 260,000 of that is from employee wages and benefits. And the reason for that is, one, we have vacant positions, and two, it depends on when we fill some of those vacant positions as well. And we have been really tightening up on overtime and so forth. So as we fully staff, we're hoping to see some cost control measures being put in place.
But as we go through the year, we'll put in $40,000 per month of reduced expenses to generate the $500,000. Some months are good, some months are bad, but.
That's correct. We will continuously monitor our expenses to make sure that we're
Then as going forward, then we will budget 40,000 per month, 480,000, 500,000 for the next 15 years.
Well, this payment has to be done in January of each year. So we anticipate that payment will be made out in January. So we won't be amortizing it over the 12-month period of the fiscal year, but we will budget it so that in January, we will see that expenditure go out.
Do we actually pay out?
Yes, we do. So as you can see here, we have already made that 1.5 million, 9,584. So in January, we will be making that $500,000.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, 4 seems to be reasonable because we're not ever gonna be catching up. But I remember looking into this years ago, and I think California and New York were like at 5%. And the federal government's about the same, so that's not really been something that anybody's, and some cities just failed bankruptcy because it was just insane.
Yes.
Trying to keep up, which I believe happened during the .com crash when they stopped,
And COVID.
yeah,
Mhm.
started losing money in the market, which increased our liabilities. So, but, yeah, that's the most reasonable.
So one thing I wanted to add on this spreadsheet that we received from CalPERS, it includes a 2.8% inflation factor. So that should mitigate some concerns.
You chose 500,000 or
Yes.
15 years. And
This is 13 years, and the reason we targeted the date 2036 because all our major contracts at that time will either have to look at it.
okay.
So it's roughly 12 and a half years.
The 10 years, $1 million per year. Did you go through and think about that seriously and so forth? And
We
decide?
did, I can't say I spent a lot of time on it, but we can always revisit that, and we can always revisit that during the budget. We can always come back to the board and say, we feel we should increase this 500,000 to $1 million, depending again on where we land with the cash flow.
You can actually skip a year or double down a year depending upon your
That's
situation.
correct. This in no way obligates us to make this payment annually.
Or
This is
that
already-
amount you can increase or reduce.
That's correct, Steve.
Vice Chair Delgado.
Okay, great. Director Delgado.
Yes, thank you, everyone. I'm sure we're probably gonna go with the recommendation. But my dad always said, pay with cash. And you can't always do that when you buy a house or a MRF or anything else. Sometimes you gotta finance it, et cetera. But the more we pay, the more we save, and the less interest goes out the door, as far as, in this case, $6 million if we go with the suggested staff recommendation, which is kind of a compromise. And so I appreciate that. But just as an exercise in I guess, educating our board, how much effort would it be? How much time would it take if we approve this today, as suggested by you, Helen? How much time would it take for you to come back and show us what we would have to give up to save $6 million and not pay, save $9 million and not pay $9 million out in interest?
I would have to go back to CalPERS, because CalPERS is the one that determines and creates these actuarial. Again, these are made based on one, normal life for employees, age, and there's a lot of factors that go into here. How many people are retiring, how many people are actually getting the pension, and how many active employees we have. So there's a lot of moving targets. Keep in mind, we only have roughly about $24 million in cash, of which roughly $8 million now with the new reserve for the closure and post-closure reserve has just been added in October. So that only leaves us about $17 million in cash. We have capital expenditure. We have a 5-year capital expenditure coming up. So that was why I went with the $500,000 so that we can better align and smooth the curve of our cash as we go through the years. So, but in terms of your question, how long would it take? It depends on CalPERS. Right now, I can tell you, our actuary is actually on vacation until mid-December. And so he wasn't able to answer my question yesterday when I posed if I do this and perhaps maybe 2 payments, $9 million a year. Obviously, we would mitigate that $14 million, but we would eat up all the cash that we have on the district. So while it's a nice scenario to have, I just don't think it to be as fiscally responsible for the district, given the operations we have on hand.
So as a board member, I see today the 15-year plan, the 10-year plan, and the 2036 plan. And it's great to see those options. And that's why I would like to see, just for edification and maybe for practical reasons, some other options, but not to delay this or do anything other than we're already going to do today, but just so that in the future, we understand what the sacrifice might be to spend more money now and then have future boards, have $9 million more in their pocket to spend for, positive change.
Well, we can certainly evaluate this as we go through the budget every year, and we can bring back, and because when we do the budget, we actually get our actuarial valuation for the next year. So we can see how much of a decrease we have with the first impact of the 500,000. So then we can also look at where we are going to be with the cash flow, and then we can determine at that point in time if we are able to make any more than the $500,000. So it can be a year-over-year evaluation, and this 500,000 actually has to be coordinated with the CalPERS so that they're aware of what's going on.
Yeah, so I think that off season, when we don't need the information, is a good time to do it, because if we do it every year around budget time, I would have the same question. What would it take? What are we going to give up And that answer is going to be somewhat similar from year to year as far as what's the pain in order to gain X million dollars, in this case, $9 million more in cash in our hands if we were to not have to spend that on interest. So I think that the off season, when we're not under any pressure of analysis, it'd be a good time for the board to learn what the pain would be to save $9 million or $7 million, whatever it might be.
We can certainly look into that, sir, and we'll bring it back to the board when we have an opportunity to do so, as soon as we are able to do so.
Yeah, there's absolutely no hurry. All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. So I appreciate the presentation, appreciate the finance committee taking a look at this, bringing this back to us. I think we all know, we all represent agencies that have PERS outstanding liability obligations. And there is the challenge of trying to balance, you know, continuing operations, managing your cash flow, while also being really intentional with prudent fiscal management to not burden future generations with the cost of liabilities that we didn't take. So I take that really seriously. The county board of supervisors was putting, you know, money to pay down our obligation. We decided last year not to do that anymore. So we're now just paying our minimum obligation, which gives me some heartburn. So I do appreciate that we're thinking about how to find that balance. I definitely don't think, you know, I don't even know if it's worth spinning our wheels to try to figure out what it would, you know, what it would take to pay down faster, you know, to like 2 years. We know that this is just a reality of doing business. The one thing about this particular agency that does sort of put some additional pressure on me, and which is why I think it makes sense that we're looking at option 4, is that at some point we will close. And so we have an extra duty as a waste management agency that it has a horizon of closure, and that horizon of closure will have an obligation that sits on our agencies to make sure we're fully funded. So I do want to make sure that we have that plan. So I would maybe say, I think option 4 is a good balanced approach. And it gives us, the way that we're lining it up with the contracts makes a lot of sense to me. And I think it will allow us moving forward to make sure that we're fully embedding the cost of future liability into the contracts, so that it's not our agencies who are fully bearing the brunt of that cost, but it's, if we continue to take waste from other agencies, we're able to incorporate the cost of that liability into the rates that we're charging to outside agencies moving forward. So I think option 4 makes a lot of sense to me. I'm going to respectfully disagree with my colleague about, you know, spending. I think our staff has a lot on their plate. And so I think, you know, while some things are informative, I don't want to create work just for the sake of creating work. We know we don't have the cash to spend to pay down the full obligation right now without cutting all sorts of things. And we know that this is just a part of what PERS agencies have to deal with. So I'm going to make a motion that we can continue discussion, but I'm going to make a motion that we support option 4 to reduce the amortization period from 23 years to 15 years by making additional UAL payments annually as per the staff recommendation and the finance committee recommendation. Thank you.
Great.
I'll second that.
Well, sorry, Director Delgado, we had a second from Director Garcia Arzola.
Thank you.
In that motion, I know you specified 15 years, but you presented the 13-year option.
Yes, we did.
So
To 2036.
Yeah, I put 15 years in. If we pay, I mean, that doesn't prevent us from paying extra based on where we're at, but.
Right. Yeah, okay. Great, so we've got a motion. Other comments, Director Peak?
Thank you very much for the recommendation. We think to do the option is interesting. Yeah, Director Delgado seconded the motion, which eliminated his recommendation to do further financial analysis. But I'm very happy to see that this board recognizes the district has made promises to its employees and needs to have the money to pay those promises out in the future. And it's as simple as that. The district's made a promise to pay in the future to its employees, and the district should have the money to do so. And it makes sense. You've looked at the cash flow, the amount of money, $500,000 this year. A little bit of reality, there'll always be the next year's CalPERS report and the UAL could go up or down, but historically, it's always gone. It's always gone up because CalPERS historically never collects enough money to pay for the pension that occurs for every year. So you'll continue, I know you will. You'll look at it every year.
Yes, we will.
And keep a close eye on it and pay as much as the district.
Dr. McKee.
Question, help me again, what's the difference between the 13 and the 15 years?
The 13 and the 15 year, the 13 years here, as you can see, is roughly 6 million. And the 15 year is roughly 3 million. So it's
I
$3
thought the
million.
two options were 15 and.
The other one was 10. That's what's included in your actuarial report. This was, I asked them specifically to end it as of 2036.
Thank you.
That's why that's where we came up with the 500.
Yeah, I just want to say, I agree with Dr. Peak. We owe this to our employees and Dr. Reed, just that idea that we do have a horizon. We know we will do this. And I think sometimes in our cities, we sort of think like, oh, we're always going to be here. We're going to keep going with this. And I think that point that we will have an ending. Dr. Blackwelder.
Yeah, I agree with the motion in the second, but I'm wondering if it would be plausible to consider as if we have a boom years, if we have like a percent that we increase it, you know what I'm saying? So take advantage of the boom years.
We can certainly do that. As like I said, when we do our budgeting process, we can look at our cash flow. If there's anything extra, definitely we will come to the board and say, we would like to go above the 500,000 and here are the reasons why.
Yeah, the motion allows for that flexibility from year to year.
And if, again, if we're cash strapped, we can come to the board and say, we will not be doing that this year because we have all these other obligations we have to do.
And if you're suggesting a friendly amendment that we ask the finance committee to look at the reserve policy and maybe add a sentence that speaks to adding the language to put additional, if we do have one-time money that would, like an overflow into paying down UAL, I would be happy to add that to the motion if the second holds.
I'm fine.
Is it kind of built in though? I mean, in that motion with the idea is that every year we're gonna look to see.
I mean, I think it is built in, but if we wanted to formalize it or memorialize it, we do have a reserve policy, right? So are we, when we.
No, we
build
do
our-
not have a reserve policy.
No, we don't
for
have a
this.
specific reserve policy for this, but we
Right.
do have we have a number of reserve
That's correct.
policies that speak to,
Yes.
and we could look at, next, maybe at some point when the finance committee reviews reserve policies, if we have, I'm trying to think like the waterfall kind of thing, like, when we have excess, one-time monies, if we, waterfall them, you start here, then here, then here, then here, kind of situation. But maybe not creating a new reserve policy.
Like put it within our priorities.
Within our
with
priorities,
our
Mhm.
reserves. I mean, I think.
Well, something to think about. We don't need to add
Yeah,
change.
okay.
I think the point is, I to ask you, the point's well made. Management here is very.
Would it be possible to just restate the motion, just so we know?
Yeah,
So the motion is, to support, option number 4, to reduce the amortization period from 23 years to 15 years by making additional UAL payments annually, as outlined in the staff recommendation.
Okay, is that clear?
Yes, that's it, 500,000. That's it.
Didn't we go to 13 years?
It will be, but like I said, this is 2 years in arrears, so 15 years, it may be continued to the 15 year, the 500,000. But At any rate, the 13-year is here. And this is again with a 2.8% inflation factor. Again, next year, when we do the budget, we will again present this amortization schedule so you could see exactly where we're at. So it may not take the whole 15 years. It may not even take the whole 13 years. This UAL fluctuates year over year. Sometimes it can dramatically increase our market valuation, which means our UAL is less. And based on, for example, if we're 1.6 and it goes down to 1.4, hey, we can still make the 2,186,000 as a payment. So that's 700,000 versus the. So, but we will evaluate it every January when we speak with CalPERS for the next fiscal year budget. So.
All right. Okay, I'll open this up for public comment. Do we have any public comments on this agenda item?
I show none.
No? All right.
Chair Delgado still has his hand up.
Oh, Director Delgado, do you have another comment or question?
Yeah, now I'm a little confused. I thought option 4 was this 2036 schedule that we see on the screen now.
It is, sir.
Is that consistent with the motion or inconsistent with the motion?
This is what the motion is currently right here, the $500,000. However, when this valuation was done, this is based on the valuation of June 2023. So every year we get a new valuation. So this balance may go up or down depending on market conditions, new discount rates and so forth. So it will, as if you notice on the motion on the board packet, it says we will coordinate with CalPERS as to how this number starts to decrease, but trying to keep the payment at 500,000 above the UAL.
Okay, thank you. And to Mayor Peak's comment, I was willing to second this motion because I didn't hear any language in it putting blinders on us to other possibilities to save millions of dollars. So I like the motion because it implements the staff's recommendation. But I was hoping that I wouldn't be the only one, because if I am the only one, then it is not appropriate for staff to spend a minute on what I'm asking. But if someone were to say, well, you're spending $500,000 more to draw this down so that we only end up spending $9 million on interest, why didn't you put more than $500,000? I would say, well, we didn't really talk about that. I don't know. But when it comes to continuing our contracts for San Jose in 2036, or maybe increasing tip fees before then in order to save $9 million and then reduce the tip fees later after we paid off the payments. And what's the magic between 16 million in cash reserves or 24 million in cash reserves? I don't know the magic of 14 versus 13 million in cash reserves versus 16, but we would understand those trade-offs if we took the blinders off and looked at, as Supervisor Askew said, a 2-year pay down or a 5-year pay down, or, just that we as board members, I think, should be fully aware of all of our options to try to save $9 million given today's motion.
All right. Thank you, Director Delgado. Any other comments? All right, roll call, please.
Director Askew?
Aye.
Director Barber?
Yes.
Director Blackwelder?
Yes.
Director Ferlito?
Yes.
Director Garcia Arzola?
Aye.
Director McKee?
Yes.
Director Peak? Vice Chair Delgado?
Yes.
Chair Shirley?
Yes.
Motion passes.
All right. Thank you, Ellen.
Thank you.
All right, we'll move on to staff reports. Review of the October finance operating and recycling. Reports.
Thank you, Chair. We have Gord Gregson, our finance manager, give his 5-minute report.
Morning, everybody. This is a review of where the district is as of October, 4 months into fiscal 2025. Our tip fee revenue is about 14 million, and we're about $1 million behind plan. And that's largely due to lower regional volume.
I'm sorry, could you speak up a little?
Oh, sorry. Our tip fee revenue is about $1 million below plan, largely due to lower regional tip fees. Our power sales continue to lag behind plan because we've had a lot of maintenance issues going on with the power generating equipment. But the MRF continues to do very strongly. We're about 4 million in revenue there, and we are about 500,000 above plan. So total revenue through April is about 18.5 million, and we're about 700,000 below plan in total revenue. But operating expenses are doing well. Our total operating expenses are about 15.7 million, and we are about 560,000 better than plan on operating expenses. And our net income through October is 2.9 million, and we're about 159,000 above plan. And part of our better performance on net income is the fact that we've made money on selling redundant assets, and we've also had a higher interest rate on our investment income than was planned, because interest rates are kind of slowly creeping up. In terms of tonnage activity, our tonnage received year to date is about 304,000, and we're lower than the same period last year by about 40,000 tons. And that, probably will not change, or we probably need to pick that up in the rest of the fiscal year. Our diversion rate for the year is 62.7%, which is pretty consistent with what it's been in the past year or two plus. It continues to stay in the low 60s, and that's for the entire MRF activity. And overall, things are generally going in a good financial results standpoint. Any questions? I would be happy to take them.
Thank you, Bert. Questions for Bert? No. All right. Thank you so much. All right, we don't have any other correspondence. We'll move on to the election of officers for calendar year 2025. We had our ad hoc committee, this Director Peak and Director Rudowski.
Should I jump in?
Sure.
Okay.
Either one of you.
Sure, I'll take two. Civic well, or sorry, my brain, too many things. ReGen, where am I today? ReGen has, the time that I've been here, we don't have a policy for the length of term that our officers have been officers, but we've been typically, we've had a number of times where our officers have held multiple years of term. So having spoken to both Director Shirley and Director Delgado, both are interested in continuing to serve in their current position for another year. And so after having spoken to Director Melfart, we would recommend that the board consider reappointing both to their same position for another year.
Thank you. Except, do we need to do a motion and a vote on this? Yes.
Do a motion.
Yes. Okay.
So I'll make that motion.
Second.
Okay. Great. Any discussion? Thoughts? Director.
Maybe we do need a policy on this. In the 2 years, opposed to the 1 year, I think it's a good idea.
So you would recommend having the chair and
Future work for
Future
the
work.
board.
that you leave and you
Or
just leave
yes.
his work to do.
Whoa, wow.
Install chairperson. Yeah.
We'll take that on.
Okay,
We'll
great.
take it on internally with staff, and we'll return back with a suggested policy later on, probably in the next calendar year.
Yeah, okay, good. All right, any other discussion, questions? I'll take this out for public comment. Any public comment on this item? All right, so we have a motion by Rudowski and a second by Director Blackwelder. Roll call vote, please.
Director Askew?
I,
Director Barber?
Yes.
Director Blackwelder?
Yes.
Director Ferlito?
Aye.
Director Garcia Arzola?
Aye.
Director McKee?
Aye.
Director Peak?
Aye.
Vice Chair Delgado?
Yes.
And Chair Shirley?
Yes.
Motion passes.
All right, thanks, everyone. All right, we'll move on to General Manager Communications.
Thank you, Chair. I have a few, so please be patient with me. First, I'd like to start with welcoming our new assistant engineer, Keon Fieldson, if you wouldn't mind standing up, Keon. Keon's background, a little bit of his history, he's got a Bachelor of Science degree and Master's degree from Cal Poly San Luis Obispo. In civil and environmental engineering, Keon is also an Eagle Scout, has earned his title by setting up a composting program at an elementary school. We're excited to have the team and look forward to the future contributions to ReGen. We're extremely excited to welcome Keon to our engineering team. Thank you for joining us, Keon. The County of Monterey has also started installing cameras in illegal dumping areas that have been a concern for the communities. At the urging of Mayor Delgado, ReGen staff, the first cameras were placed on Lapis Road adjacent to ReGen's Monterey site. Within the first week, the first illegal dumper was caught dumping a mattress when our facility was open and accept mattresses and box springs for free of charge. The county sent out a press release and KSBW did a top of the hour story on the incident that featured Joey Soates, our communications director, speaking about ReGen's free offerings to encourage proper disposal rather than the potential of facing a hefty illegal dumping fine. So those cameras have gone into effect. They have solar powered contributions and then also have the ability to have license plate readers. So we're pretty excited about it. The Citizens for Marina spend a tremendous amount of time on a monthly basis to collect the material. ReGen staff evaluates it every day. We try to link up with the county to ensure that the videos are being reviewed when we see the objects being found on the side of the road. And we're really just at the cusp of this technology. There's going to be other areas in the county that will better utilize it, but it is going to discourage with the hefty fines. It's that final piece of enforcement around illegal waste or abandoned waste. We're excited about it. So we want to thank everybody for their contributions from the staff, the workforce, everybody that had the concept to curb it, and that continue to contribute their time to keep our views and our scenery in great condition. So thank you for that. ReGen Monterey's communication staff also participated in the illegal dumping and litter abatement task force quarterly cleanup in November. The group made up of Monterey County, cities, haulers, and other stakeholders around illegal dumping. In addition to the meetings and education and enforcement, they pick up different sites in different areas of the county. So we're pretty happy that we worked with the Gavilan Creek Wilderness Sanctuary and also the green belts near the ag fields and Alvarez High School and Steinbeck Elementary School. So thank you for your support around those items. Our engineering and communications team also partnered with CSUMB's new engineering program, showing the university, our facility, sharing with faculty and staff the job opportunities here at our organization and other waste management facilities. So we're pretty excited about introducing that. That's been a goal of ours to get folks curious about our industry. I was at the Gold Rush Chapter, which is a SWANA organization for California, and they made an assessment in that meeting and they asked folks to, how many people went to school and thought they would wind up working for solid waste. And there was one person that raised their hand, and that's pretty common for that to happen. So we really want to show the schools and the colleges and the university the opportunity the students have to work for a very exciting industry, one that's always evolving, has challenges, has legislation involved in it, and then also the innovation that's driven by the desire to accomplish some of the tasks. So really excited with the involvement with the many universities that are interested in coming and sharing the knowledge and the word around ReGen Monterey facility. We also had Monterey Peninsula College Horticultural Facility students join us last month. They were highly interested in our composting and our tasks around compost. So pretty excited, reaching a lot of people around the availability to do tours and share our operation with them. We also had Eric Palmer, our senior communications, presented a webinar to the California Association of Public Information Officials about best practices around social media accounts. He also serves on the association as the board of directors of social media chair. So we're excited to continue to support other organizations that are trying to spread the word around what they do, and learn from some of what we've learned over the last few years as we've gotten better at the delivery of internet and social media expectations for our organization. I also want to remind folks of the December 14th holiday celebration. You guys should have gotten your invites in the mail, so if you guys can RSVP and make sure that those come back out to staff so we can appropriate the number of guests that will be hosting that day. I also like to take my final opportunity to thank Director Peak and Director Ferlio for their contributions to our board. I think Director Peak really showed his interest in what we do in our organizations. He's constantly has challenged the original concepts and thus upgrading our quality and our results of our accomplishments. So I'm very grateful for your contributions over the short period of time. We're very sorry that you're leaving. For Karen Ferlio, we're very excited for you and your contributions that you've done at ReGen, very up to date with all the other technologies, things that we should be doing, and always caring about our environment and our people and how to make those processes better. We wish you guys the best, the endeavors to come back whenever you guys want to check up on us. But I appreciate your service and your contributions, yes. Just trying to, if you guys can join me in a round of applause.
The donut.
Well, we're hoping that you guys can come back in January to receive the resolution for your service and contributions to the organization. Thank you very much. And Chair, that will conclude my general manager communications.
I have a question about your report. I was on the illegal dumping task force for quite a while. And one of the problems, and I think this question about the cameras, was that while they might have a license plate, they had people who would say, I didn't do it. I wasn't driving. So do you know if the cameras take a picture of the person driving the car as well as the license plate?
Yeah, I'd be happy to share a little bit of my experience, and Zoe, you can jump in if you like. There is several cameras on Lapis Road. It's not one independent camera. One is catching vehicles coming in and out. The example of the mattress at the vehicle description, color, model, make, license plate number, the individual that was dumping. It also showed their videos are not pictures, so you're seeing video clips or streams with the mattress that was on the back of the truck, pulled to the side, truck's gone, mattress on the side of the road. So I believe the county's position will be to treat it like the fast track of the Bay Areas. It'll go to the registered owner, they'll be responsible, whether cousin John or nephew Joe borrowed the truck, it will go to the registered owner for the liability of the vehicle and the improper disposal of the items thrown there. I think the minimum fine is
2,500 for the
five.
first, 2,500 for the first offense. I believe it's 5,000 for the second and 10,000 for the third.
And if there's illegal items or contamination items, it could go right to the most extreme or straight to the district attorney's office for filing charges.
And secondly, the other thing that we talked about at that task force was how to actually get the word out to the residents of multifamily housing, because some of the notices about free mattress disposal and so on only go to the owner of the multifamily homes or apartments and so on, and it doesn't trickle down to reaching the actual residents, and that has to be perhaps something that social media could work on, about more exposure about free mattress, disposal, because, many of the things we realized on that task force just don't trickle down where they need to go. And, so if there's any way you can assist the, illegal dumping task force, with some of the social media outreach, it would be probably very well.
Yeah.
But I think it's just a great thing that we're actually getting cameras. The illegal dumping, not only in our county, but throughout the state is just terrible. And some of it is done by actual waste haulers down in the LA area where they go out in a canyon and just stuff. So, it can be very dangerous as well. Thank you very much for that report.
Wendy, and then Zoe.
Yeah, I want to start by, thank you for the report. I want to start by commending, the incredible work that, Mayor Delgado and this like phenomenal group of volunteers does and has been doing. Not just like one off, not just two off, not just for a year, not just for a few years, but like multiple years, day after day, month after month, year after year. On Lapis Road and throughout many sites in Marina and the surrounding areas. So credit where credit's due. The county did adopt a very aggressive policy to deter illegal dumping with some very, very significant fines. The focus, as we've been told, is on education. And so, but what we've heard, and when that report on KSBW came out, while there was, you know, I think it really rose, it gained attention to the issue, of course, but in it, while we heard people saying, finally, someone's doing something, we also heard many, many people say, we had no idea that there was a free option to dispose of mattresses or box springs. So I think, to your point, Karen, we have so much more work to do to educate people because they don't know what they don't know. And my concern is that the risk of those who are gonna end up, potentially, some of those who could end up being hit with these really incredibly high fines, I mean, $10,000 potentially, a fine for dumping a mattress, are those who are least capable and able to, you know, that could be a devastating reality for some individuals when we do have options for free disposal. So I think we have a duty to make sure we're getting that information out there. The commitment that the county continues to tell us is we've never actually fined anyone. We're going to keep focusing on education. So I'm hopeful that that is actually what's happening. And the illegal task force, I think you guys are really doing the work to make sure that that does happen. But I do want to just acknowledge what your comment is and give Bruce some credit. And to thank ReGen for helping to continue to be a partner on the Lapis Road issue for dumping. So those are my, and we'll pass it to whoever next.
Okay, I know Zoe, you wanted to.
I just wanted to say thanks to the county of Monterey for adopting enforcement. I mean, really, this illegal dumping task force has had some minimal educational funds that they've been able to do, and we've really focused on eradication, which is all the cleanup. So without any enforcement, there was kind of the third leg of the stool that was never completed. So adopting those fines, whether or not they be implemented, really allows for that third leg of the stool to be there. So thanks to the Monterey County Board of Supervisors and to the county for really leading this effort in totality. And in addition, I wanted to also thank Mayor Delgado because he's really out on the front lines with volunteers doing the cleanup in Monterey County and has highlighted for us the areas that need the most improvement and help as it relates to the eradication and to our ops team. You know, they are out there every day monitoring these roads and ensuring that if anything's dropped off that's of any significance, that they're out there picking it up and making sure that it remains clean. So I think it's really been a great team effort, and we've made a lot of progress over the last year with some of those last pieces that the county of Monterey has put in place with the cameras.
Yeah. I have one more comment on that, just a second. Is there any way possible that signage could be put up at the trouble spots, the hot spots that explains that there is free disposal of mattresses or
There is signage currently there and it has been there to deter illegal dumping, noting that it's a crime. So that signage already exists and has existed, but it hasn't been effective.
But does it say you can dump mattresses?
It does not. That's a relatively new.
We need to add that.
Yeah, that's a
That's something
relatively
that-
new addition from the County Board of Supervisors, so I would say that is a possibility. But that's, again, I think probably up to the county to decide if that signage is
Well,
appropriate.
We've requested that signage be added time and time again, so I think it's an appropriate thing if ReGen can request that signage be added as well. I think having the more, like, it's not being heard, but I think it's absolutely appropriate to have, dumping is illegal, you're gonna be fined $10,000, and here's where you can do it for free.
Mhm.
Here's your alternative option.
Yeah. Director Delgado.
Yeah, Wendy mentioned credit where credit is due. Jameson Pfister of ReGen and John Easton, Jay Ramos, Felipe, they've all been involved personally for a long time, like multiple years on this. And so thank you, because of course they're the ones that pick up everything and check everything and helped out with the cameras. Really appreciate that. And then at the county level, Department of Environmental Health, Maria Furden, and the County Board of Supervisors and everyone between them to get the county involved the way it has been. And then, of course, none of this can proceed without the DA office participation. So it's a lot of coordination from the volunteers on the streets up through the County Board of Supervisors. So thank you to everybody involved. And then to Karen and Bill, I want to say thank you for your service. I really enjoyed working with you both. Bill, I've never had anyone disagree with me more than you have, except for Mayor Pendergrass. But you and I, had very respectful conversations on and off the dais, and so I really appreciated your time on the board. And Karen, I especially appreciated your dedication to what I'll just call, in a broad stroke, environmentalism. Thank you for caring as much as you do.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. Are there other board communications? That's right. Sorry.
Yeah, I do have a couple of follow-up comments. I hear Director Farrelito and Director Askew with the awareness of items that are free. Haulers do publish items. There's published items in paper. We've been dealing with this. I've been in the industry for 25 years now. There's a moral and personal value attribute that needs to be taken into this. It's not okay, whether there's a sign out there or not, to throw materials away off an embankment in an area that is beautiful. So there's, I don't want to say don't make up excuses, but there is a personal integrity aspect of this. So I just want to recognize that I do agree that we should put more signs out there, but there's a personal value that goes into when the landfill lives here. And just outside the fence, we continue to get people to throw stuff out there. So that's a heavily opinionated view from my point, but I've been in the industry for 25 years and continue to deal with this. I hear Director Root ask you, I had the same impression when I seen the fines is, some people may not be able to do this. I do have the willingness to provide an option for the county that could be done through work furlough. We would be happy to take those people that are illegally dumped to come and kick litter here on the base of the landfill and put them to work so that they can realize how they can improve their personal value and dump. So just gonna stay open. I'm gonna stay curious to it. To Mayor Delgado's point, our staff here, we've gone out and we've gotten mobile cameras. We've done a lot to really try to curb this down. Jameson, he's been a huge contribution when he joined the team. He drives the road every day. Jay drives the road every day. We're reporting over the county, and then it starts its process. And I think we can improve on the efficiency of the process. I think I heard Mayor Delgado talk about, can those fines fund more cameras and keep that process going for a longer period of time without just putting a single onus financial responsibility on the county. But I'm gonna stay curious to this. I think these are really near to us because we've been dealing with it for a long time. So I appreciate the opportunity just to open commonly on my opinion of these two items here.
Well, it's an important topic and I love I'm happy to see the collaboration, which is absolutely vital to, solving this problem. Director Blackwelder.
Just a quick point about having these people out here with the ability on that main road to be picking up litter. One of them gets run over and that could be a gazillion-dollar thing. This is about.
Okay. All right, I just want to say, thank you to all of you for, voting me in as chair. I'm excited to have another year of this. This has, been challenging and exciting for me, and I love this place so much, so I'm happy to do it, so.
Great
thank you.
job.
And, I hope we see Karen and Bill back in January for resolution. Both of you have been so important on this board. Karen, your passion for environmentalism and education is helpful, and I appreciate all your comments. And Bill, again, you're leaving this place better than you left it, than when you arrived. So, thanks for always pushing us. I value your opinion. All right, any other board communications? No. All right, so we'll go ahead and adjourn. Our next meeting is in January 24th. So I wish all of you a very happy holidays. And we'll see you hopefully at the Christmas party and in the new year.
Good luck to you.
So thanks.